means of transportation when the lake was probably utilized in a different way than it is today. A couple years ago, the aluminum dock system that existed, which was not a great system to begin with, had to be removed because some of the aluminum planks were broken and vandalism, and it really wasn't a stable structure and a real user-friendly structure. So that was removed 2 or 3 years ago, and we're looking to help maximize the use of that property because I think it's quite popular not only for that neighborhood but others that are aware of it, for a canoe and kayak launch with an aluminum docking system for that. That's a part of that project. The other piece of it is we also are experiencing erosion along the shoreline there that needs to be addressed. The shoreline is just eroding back. We get a lot of sheet flow off of Gale Avenue, and we're hoping to intercept some of that sheet flow of drainage, closer up towards the end of Gale Ave, prior to it reaching the lake, and have more of a controlled flow into the lake, so we're not having that erosion. And just another opportunity, I think, to address water quality issues and erosion problems, which has been previously identified by the City Council through the strategic planning sessions, that those are items that they want to have a strong focus on. So any other questions on that? I can move on. Okay. Third item is the O-Pee-Chee Beach Facilities Drainage Improvement Design Phase. Again, we're kind of staggering these projects. So this item would be for the design of drainage improvements at the 2 beaches at O-Pee-Chee, O-Pee-Chee Cove and O-Pee-Chee Point. Both are, again, experiencing erosion. O-Pee-Chee Cove had a drainage system on the back of the beach. It was installed probably going back into the 70s or early 80s. That drainage system is just not functioning the way it needs to be and needs to be modified. So that's what we're hoping to, that's our intention on O-Pee-Chee Cove and O-Pee-Chee Point. Again, years ago, the sand would just come in and be dumped on the beach and spread out, and that was how the beach got replenished. We can no longer do that, so that beach is starting to see significant erosion, and the quality of the beach sand is significantly diminished. So this would be the design phase for both of those projects, and the amount is $40,000. And that's for both, so $20,000 each if you want to split it up.
I don't suppose there's anything that can be done within a reasonable budgetary restriction to improve the water flow in the cove.
Yeah, we've looked at a lot of different things that we could try to do that. I mean, people asked about, can you put a fountain out in the middle of the water to circulate it? That's I've been told is not an option because it's just not an approved use of that type of, you get into shoreline rules.
You have to be a mighty big fountain to have any effect whatsoever.
Right. And there's a major drainage system that drains from Pleasant Street and up and above that comes down, and the Public Works Department had done a drainage improvement at the very end of that outlet where they kind of put in some vegetated
swale.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. And that's had some success. That the intent of that is to filter out the things that you don't want, but it's a challenge, and I think we have problems with circulation. There's street runoff that's an issue. Waterfowl is a problem.
Oh, God, yeah.
So we have some challenges that are really difficult, and we also have to try to follow the rules too to try to solve these problems. I think years ago people always say to me, "Geez, why was it never a problem when I was growing up?" And the answer is because they didn't test the water.
Exactly. What you didn't know wouldn't hurt you.
Right. So we're testing, which I think is a good thing, but we're also finding out that there are water quality issues there.
Right.
The O-Pee-Chee Point is not a water quality issue. There are times where we've had high readings, but very rarely there.
Well, you get high E. coli when you have a lot of people in the water. But I think the problem with the cove is that there's not nearly enough natural water circulation in there. It's pretty much a cul-de-sac.
Right.
Yeah.
And that it's been brought up maybe we need to not use that as a beach because we already have a beach at O-Pee-Chee, and maybe find another use for that area. It's I don't know what that use would be, but I think the public's at a point where the perception, and it's a realistic perception,
But
is
a
that
goose preserve.
yes, yeah. But it's, I don't think you don't see that beach getting used that much. So maybe we need to consider just designating O-Pee-Chee Point as the swimming beach for that park. And is there really a need for two beaches? I think we have to ask ourselves that.
I think that beach has always been popular with families with small children.
Right.
Because of the fact that the play area is right at the beach, and it's fairly shallow, and it's more reassuring, I think, for moms that might be otherwise taxed to keep an eye on their, it doesn't, you can walk pretty far out.
Right, stays shallow.
Right, it stays shallow for a long ways.
Right. So certainly some challenges there. This is a piece of the puzzle, but it's not, water quality has different components. Some of the water quality is a bacteria issue, but it's also a sediment issue and an erosion issue. So
Nutrients.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with this request is more focused on the erosion and the sediment issue, not necessarily the bacteria, although it will help with that for sure.
Right.
Okay, so the next item is the acquisition of a 4x4 pickup truck with a plow. Currently, the department has a one pickup that we use for plowing. It's a 12-year-old F-250. It has about 55,000 miles on it. We don't intend to get rid of that vehicle. It's our primary plow vehicle. But we're at a point where, it's had issues as far as dependability. We intend to use it as more of a backup or to supplement during heavy storms. And so having a new vehicle will help us keep up with our snow removal process. And these trucks are not only used for plowing; they're used throughout the year. And we have a need for more vehicles as the park system has expanded over as time has gone on here, and we're as far as staffing levels go, the logistics of it is we're constantly shuffling vehicles and moving them around and utilizing old police cruisers for maintenance activities. So it'd be nice to have another pickup truck in the fleet for plowing but also for year-round use.
I see you have 120,000 for the next fiscal year after that, on that same item?
This would be, no, that's a typo.
Okay.
Remove that. I think that carried down from up above.
That's the build phase of the
Yes.
facilities drainage improvements
You got
at
it.
Peachy?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that just carried over. I apologize.
I was gonna say, and next year he wants three
You're
of
gonna
them.
get a lot more.
All right, good.
There you go.
So that amount is $40,000 for that. It'd be like an F-250 with a plow package, 4-wheel drive.
Right. Okay.
The next item is a newer item that really is kind of we added at the end of the summer here as we were formulating this plan, is for a steel storage building. And I'll tell you, our current storage situation is we're utilizing I think what people have told me it used to be the pig barn up at the state school property or the Lakes Region facility. So there's the issues with that building's about, I think it's 40 by 100. The police department used it at one time for some storage, but essentially the roof is deteriorated. It's leaking. The city doesn't own the building. It's owned by the state as a part of the Lakes Region facility. So I'm hesitant to invest in this building, and it's an older building. It's got no electricity. It's cold storage. But we need to find a different storage option. And I'm hesitant to repair the roof because we don't own the building and we don't know what's going to be happening with that facility. And I think we need to start looking at another option for our storage. Not looking at a elaborate building here. It's a steel building that will house fertilizer, grass seed, equipment that we aren't using that's off season. Like in the summer, we can put our snow removal equipment in there. and in the winter, we can put our mowers in there. And I'm looking for about a 40 by 60 steel building. And we may even be able to consider, I don't know if any of you have seen the salt and sand sheds over at the Public Works facility, but they're a soft-sided. They have a steel framework, but they're soft-sided. That could be a possibility as well. So we just feel like we need to have some storage, and we don't have room at the community center. Our maintenance garage in the back of the community center is a very small building. It has office space and storage, but for equipment and fertilizer. Right now, this year, we filled it up with fertilizer and grass seed and everything else, and it just doesn't allow us to any room in there at all. So, so hopefully that can be considered as a.
Where would you put it?
Yeah.
Well, we've looked at behind the community center, but our issue with that is it would take up parking, which is very limited there. We've thought about maybe one of the DPW properties, whether the yard down by Opeechee. We also have a property at the end of South Street where the sledding hill is and the snow dump. We've also thought about potentially Memorial Park in a location out behind the tennis courts. One of the issues, though, that concerns us with that is security. Having a facility that's away from everything, it can be, with people that might have access to it. I mean, a steel building can be secured, but, we would have concerns with that. So to answer your question, we don't have a definitive location yet. I'd like to think that we could find one.
I would think a soft-sided building could suffer the consequences of people getting in that
Right.
as well.
And if we were able to put one at the community center, we could probably get away with that because we can secure that area in the back well. And one of the things is that a steel building versus a stick-built building or a soft-sided building is if we ever had to move it, those structures can be moved. Not necessarily an easy task, but if something happened with a community center facility or we needed to relocate it, that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And we're not looking for what they did over at Public Works is they didn't put down a concrete slab. They just paved the surface underneath and then had, put the equipment, the sand and salt stores on that. So we wouldn't have that cost of a foundation. It would just be an asphalt surface.
What do you do with the basement of the rec building?
Right. We have storage in there for files like assessing has a couple rooms down there. Christmas Village utilizes it. We have the racquetball court down there. We have storage for elections in a couple of the rooms. We have some old storage vaults that we put in old files. The main room, what I would call the main room down there, is utilized by one of our programs called Arts Fest, which is like a dance group and that type of thing. We also have the blood drives. Red Cross is utilizing that main room now for their blood drives, not that they can't use Sacred Heart. Certainly we have opportunity for other groups to utilize that space. It's just not real popular because it's a basement, and oftentimes we have trouble. People just don't want to use a basement facility. But there's opportunity down there, but not a lot for storage. And this would be larger equipment that would be hard to get in and out, and I wouldn't want to store fertilizer in that building for sure, or anything along those lines. But
Yes.
Kevin, is that adequate? I mean, is the size adequate?
But that I have
mean,
here?
Yeah.
Yes.
As you guys continue to grow, I mean, I'd hate to see,
Right.
5 years from now, it's too
Oh,
small.
no, I think this is adequate, and I'm
Okay.
basing this off on what we use up at the prison storage, what we call the prison storage, that building that we use up there. I'm basing it off of that. So I think it's adequate, yes, for what our needs are. And the amount that I'm requesting is $85,000 for that. And that could vary if we end up going with a soft-sided building. That would be less. This would be for a steel building.
No, go ahead.
Kevin, I'd rather see you have a building, and not something. I mean,
Right.
you guys are continually asked to do more and more and more with less and less and less. I mean, it's time that you guys have a building too.
Well, that's certainly something we could investigate. I try to look at trying to do things as best we can with what we have. But if there's a strong feeling that we need to, and there has been discussions about relocating our maintenance division out of the community center. There was a proposal years ago that to remove the the maintenance building back there, because we are short on parking, use that space for parking and then relocate our maintenance operation to another site. So just those opportunities I just don't think have arisen.
It's just kind of a short editorial. You guys seem to be always at the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah, no, we appreciate what we get, but I think we're getting to a point where our park system's grown, and with the WOW Trail and and the amount of facilities that we've added, we could certainly benefit by a larger facility. Mm-hmm. And there may be some opportunities that may come up with the redevelopment of the Lakes Region facility. I don't know if there's any opportunity for us to utilize anything up there, or any space up there, but that wouldn't be a bad location for us in that. We have Robbie Mills complex right up there. We're still close to Lakeport. Gets us out of town a little bit, so we're not dealing with traffic so much. But it wouldn't be a bad location. But certainly something we can continue to discuss.
Another question: the Bond Beach parcel itself,
Yes.
the property, doesn't it extend all the way to the elementary school?
Yes, it's my understanding is that it's not the elementary school is not a separate parcel. So it's all one parcel. So the Bond Beach Park property has the school on that property, would be my understanding.
It seems to me that it's sort of underutilized. And, I mean, even if you were to just put like nature trails or something.
Sure.
Connecting the school to the waterfront, that'd be nice. But certainly you could find a spot to put a storage building or somewhere on that property, couldn't you?
We could. There's a possibility. Again, it's remote, so we'd have to, it's a remote location. Unfortunately,
Not if it was like right behind the school. I mean, it
yeah,
would be
there's a
visible and accessible from the school parking lot, probably,
Sure.
right? Couldn't it be?
could be. Yeah, it is about right up there. Yeah, no, and I think there could be something we could certainly look at.
Just an idea.
Yeah.
I'd be concerned about safety passing through that school property like. I mean, we already have a problem during the day of parking out on the road and everything else, and then
I'm saying if the building itself could be accessed by vehicles off the Bond Beach access road, but the building itself could be visible from the parking lot, which for security purposes, it's pretty well lit at night. That's all I'm saying.
we also have a 99-year lease on a 10-acre spot across from the state school property. We ought to.
The Opeachy side, yeah.
Yep.
There's actually two parcels. The one you mentioned, which is I call it the triangle. It's the one where Old North Main intersects. So that's we have a 99-year lease. We also have a 99-year lease on a parcel on the opposite side of Robbie Mills, across Meredith Center Road. There's a rectangular field that is a 99-year lease on that. So there may be some opportunity there.
They want us.
Across, you mean on the former state school property, what's the name of that road? Is it Eastman Road goes down there?
Yes.
Yes.
No, this would be at the corner of Lane Road and Meredith Center.
Which side?
Okay.
It's on the
You're
transfer
looking for-
station side. On the same side of the road as the
Oh,
transfer
okay,
station.
right. Oh, I know
There's
what
a
you're talking
rectangular piece there. Right. I don't know if anybody remembers Brian Phelps owns the house right next to that field.
I'm getting lost. I'm talking about the Lane Road.
Yeah. So
Is it to the south side of Lane Road or the north side?
north,
So it's that big rectangular field?
yes. Yeah,
Glad to know
Directly
that.
across from Robbie
Right.
Mills, basically.
Correct.
Right, okay.
right.
Interesting.
That commission wants to swap some parking closer to Robbie Mills for that 10-acre triangle that he's talking about. And I'm a bit opposed to that.
Right.
I think there are better uses for the city for that land than to swap it for a parking lot.
You probably know that property a little better than average?
I certainly am somewhat familiar with it, yes. Yes.
All right.
So I'll move on unless there's other questions. Okay, next item is Bond Beach is back on the topic of discussion here. This is a paving of the Bond Beach access road.
You go, brother.
The yeah, sounds like somebody's experienced it. So
You get a couple of axle busters down there.
yeah. So we have a portion of that road was paved a handful of years ago. It's the steep portion that kind of is in the middle of the road. That portion is fine, but it's the lower end as you approach the beach. There's about close to 600 feet of road there that's in really poor condition. And I can't tell you when the last time that was paved. It's
I think the CCC did it during.
I think so. It's like what they call the old farmer's mix. It's an ancient version of asphalt, but and it's gotten so bad at the lower point that people are driving off the road onto the shoulder to drive off the road.
On the grass, sir.
On the grass,
On
yeah,
the grass,
yeah. And then the upper portion, which is not as bad as the lower portion, is in need of repair as well. So I'm requesting $50,000 for paving of Bond Beach Access Road. And I'll mention that there are some funds available through what we call our there's two separate funds. There's a beach fund that's set aside for improvements at all our beaches that's derived from revenue for the beach stickers. So that money gets pulled out. It doesn't go into the general fund. It gets pulled out into a revolving fund. I can't remember the balance of that. But there's also another fund that it would be more for Weirs Beach improvements for the portion of the revenue from the parking meters goes to improvements at Weirs Beach. Just so you're aware of where funding might become for projects that relate to those things. The next item I have is playground revitalization, and I'm requesting an amount of $15,000, and this is an ongoing request just to keep our playground systems in a safe condition. We frequently have to change the chains on the swings. There's requirements that those need to be replaced after a certain amount of wear, and those are not the type of chains you can just go to the hardware store and buy. You have to order them. They're manufactured for playground use. Unfortunately, we have vandalism that occurs at our playgrounds every year, and the equipment is not cheap to replace. It's expensive, and we also have to provide playground surfacing at all our playgrounds to keep them safe. So this money is just helps us keep those playground systems in good shape, and I believe they get a ton of use. And I think it's a great investment to keep them. And I think if anybody goes by on a nice day, they'll look at Wyatt Park and see how many kids are there. And all our parks get a lot of playground use. So,
Kevin, on that used to be $25,000 a year.
right.
And
that
I know
was-
then it disappeared for a few years, and now it's
Yeah.
only at 15. So why?
Right. The $25,000 was to buy more stuff, essentially to expand some of our and that was something that Brenda Bear had, I think, initiated.
I was in way before.
Before her?
Yeah.
So it was, so I think that program lasted a good 10, 12 years, even before I was here, but I think we got to a point where we got a good handle on our systems, and they're all safe and up to date. There may be a time where I come in a handful of years ahead and say, all right, we need a total replacement of this particular system, because you get to a point where you can't get replacement parts. But I think we're in good shape. So the 15 just helps me get those parts that I need to do the annual maintenance and repairs on the playground systems.
It just doesn't seem like it's much.
What's that? Yeah,
It
it
doesn't
doesn't
seem
seem
like
like
a
much,
large
and I know it's a small amount, but to try to absorb it out of my operating budget, it's just difficult. So, and I don't want to get to a point where I may not have the money to do it, but if I have designated funds, then I can keep ahead of it.
And this is 15,000.
Yes. Okay, the last Parks and Rec item is the replacement for a 4x4, meaning four-wheel drive dump truck with a crew cab. Our current vehicle that this new vehicle would replace was purchased in 2001. So it's going to be 18 years old next year. So it's hit the end of its useful life. I mean, we're still utilizing it. That vehicle is utilized for mowing crew, for a mowing crew to haul mulch, to remove snow from parking lots, and a whole host of other activities. So it would be to replace a purchase of a new vehicle to replace an 18-year-old vehicle, and the amount we're requesting is $50,000. And I think that's all I have for the parks requests.
You're saying this costs as much as a pickup truck? I would think it costs more.
Well, I think 50, I've consulted with the mechanic at DPW, and he said he thinks that's sufficient.
Fine,
Yep.
seems like you're shortchanging yourself.
No, I think we've been able to do that. We just purchased one, a dump truck for, I think it was $34,000. It wasn't a 4x4, but it was a dual axle, and so it was $34,000.
Kevin, that's with no plow?
We would not use a plow on that. So my intent is we'd have a new plow truck, and then we'd have our existing plow truck.
Yeah,
So
but would it help if you had two?
well, right, and I would plan on keeping.
Okay. All right.
Keeping the other one. I think we can extend the life of that for a while longer. It won't be our primary, but I think you understand. The new one that I talked about up above would be a new one, and then we would still have the existing one to utilize.
So the 4x4 dump, that's like a pickup truck sized chassis? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it'd be a little bigger. It'd be more like a landscaping dump truck that you would see, dual axle.
Okay.
500 HD.
Yeah, like a 550 or what? Yeah. Yeah.
And 50,000, I mean, I know, aren't there like pickup trucks for 50,000?
Oh yeah, but these aren't gonna.
These won't be loaded.
No,
No.
they're gonna be.
DPS,
They're
no
work
stereo,
trucks.
no.
Seats.
No leather
No
trim.
stereo. You can't subject the city employee to spending all that time in a truck without giving him.
That's right. The air conditioning is the one that's hard to get them out of the
Yeah,
truck
right.
on.
The air conditioning, right?
The last item I have, as I mentioned, was a non-departmental request for replacement of the carpet at the police station.
We heard about that from the police.
Oh, did they mention it? Okay, so
Dumped it right in your lap.
did they? Yeah, I bet they did. Yeah.
They said, yeah, talk to Dunleavy. They know. He knows what's going on.
So we got our pricing in the amount of $23,000.
23,
23.
thank you.
And that's not a full replacement. There are some areas like closets and those types of things that we wouldn't have to, and some of the rooms that just don't get a significant amount of use wouldn't be replaced. But certainly it's, we're closing in on, I think, 20 years, and a lot of the desk areas where there's chairs are just worn and rippled and, the usual wear and tear. And we would be replacing it with tile carpet, so it comes in the tiles where if you have a spill or if you need to replace, you peel up a tile, you replace it, and you don't need to do a full replacement.
So expensive.
And I think that's all I have tonight, but be glad to answer any questions you may have.
My pet gripe, the skateboard park,
Yes, yep, and that's on a future year,
I see that.
yep. And
Kevin, we're not kicking the can down the road.
why am I doing it?
No, I said we're not kicking the can down the road. Year after year, it just seems to be,
Well, I think that the reason why I didn't have it up to this year is I think we really need to investigate two things. I think we need to look at trying to get a group to come forward that can work with the city in a public-private partnership to upgrade that, to install new elements into that park. That's one option. The other option, I think you may have heard me say, is we could consider a regional skate park, because it seems like other communities that are neighboring us struggle with getting skate parks and funding them and the maintenance that goes with them. And I think that may be an option that we could look at. And one of my goals is here, once we get through the construction season, is to sit down with some of the other Parks and Rec folks in the region and just throw that idea on the table. Sometimes it can be a tough sell because people tend to want their own thing and their own funding, but I think we've seen that cooperation between communities can happen, like with an example of the fire department. People, I think some of the concerns with a regional skate park would be, where would it be, what community would host it, but also how the kid's going to get there. And I think the kids will find a way to get there, most of them, not all of them, but most of them will find a way to get there. And some of the conversations I've had with the kids, I mean, they're driving down to, I think it's Manchester just put in a new one, or Nashville, one of the others, and then there's an indoor skate park in Portsmouth that kids drive down and
Right.
pay $20 a day or whatever they do. So I think they'll drive, and for the most part, they'll get to it if it's a nice enough facility. So those are some options that but I would really like to see some more members of the skateboard community step forward and see if they can assist in a public-private partnership.
I just want to say, one of the places I do go by up in Bethel, Maine, they have a park that seems to have a lot of concrete elements and stuff like that. But there's always kids there.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of out
Sure.
a little bit, but I always see kids there.
Right. And one of the things, why I think the request was for 75,000. I mean, that's going to get us, a reasonable amount of elements, but these are not, I think we need to avoid the homemade wooden structures. They just don't last. They're a maintenance nightmare. In this part of the country, they're just not a real reasonable approach, in my opinion. I think we need to look at structures and equipment that's fabricated for that purpose. Anyway.
Yes, Bruce.
I have two last things. One, you're going to expect, and that is how we doing on plans to cut back?
Yep. We're going to be, and they'll be in the project updates for the council. With the drawdown going on, I've got a crew that's going to be hitting O-Pee-Chee Park during the drawdown. So I was thinking originally we were going to wait till winter, but we can get to that O-Pee-Chee Park piece.
Right.
Pearly Pond, I had met with DES officials, and they're telling me that we need to wait until the ground freezes until
Okay.
we can get out there in the colder weather. And our plan is to remove that brush to open up the visibility. DPW's been in there and removed some trees in the back.
Got
They
more
still
to
got to
go.
go back. They
Yeah.
got more to go. And then I've also met with the urban forester with the state who looked at the Pearly Oak and made recommendations to us for some pruning. I mean, the reality is that tree is still in a dying state. It's kind of in a, lack of a better term, do not resuscitate mode, I think. But the steps of pruning some of the dead limbs that exist there will help extend its life. Yeah, so it'll give it a little more, but it's still there, and it's still a state champion, and so I've already reached out to one company to do this pruning, but that again will have to happen when the ground freezes because they don't want disturbance of the ground when they get vehicles in there to prune.
The only other thing was, you said earlier in the evening something about at the turn of the century, something was installed. I don't remember.
There was a public dock at the end of Gale Ave
Right.
in the early 1900s. So,
The turn of the century was 18 years ago.
I gotta be careful. I'm showing my age, I guess.
You have to specify.
The previous
turn of
century.
The 20th
Yeah,
century.
Particularly for older people like
Yeah,
me, you do.
Yeah, I forget that we were already in another century.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Thank you,
Great, no, thank you.
thank you.
Anything else?
I don't think there's anything.
And as always, I mean, I think most of you know me, you know how to get a hold of me. If you have questions, never hesitate to call about anything, so.
I'll call you Dad. That's how I'll get a hold of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. There's no more presentations this evening. Is there any other business?
Just want to remind everybody, next Tuesday is the public hearing.
I was here last night, by the way, I'll have you know, at 6:15, and I was pissed that door was closed and locked until I looked over at the meeting notice bulletin board, which, by the way, that glass needs to be replaced because you can't see it. But anyway, was able to squint and notice that this was the week that we changed it to Wednesday. And the irony is that I went to the calling hours early so that I could get here. I completely forgot that whole email chain about moving it
I
for
was here
Armin's.
last night too, I'm sorry.
Oh,
23rd
So glad.
Yes,
at what time?
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah, 6:30. And then we've got, the next one, the deadline is the end of the month,
Yep, 31st for scoring, for your scoring sheets.
right? Those have to be turned in, and then we do the formal presentation of the planning board, the November meeting, right?
There's one more meeting that we
No,
argued.
you're gonna, yeah, you'll have one meeting in November, and then, no, it'll be the December meeting for the plan.
December meeting for the planning board,
Yep.
right? And then the planning board will just present it to the city council, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right then, if there's no other business, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion?
All right, we don't need a second for that motion, so I'm gonna declare the meeting adjourned at 7:40. Thank you very much, everyone.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Thank you.
no,
It's good, I'm
I'm
getting
serious.
half.
So,
Hey, good girl.
the 25th, Ava, right?
Just you.
Yes, sir.
I was freaking out, making sure that I didn't have
I forget my scarves.
conflict.
Don't put them in my sleeves.
I'm